Solo Sikoa made his return on last week's edition of WWE SmackDown, and, well, there are a lot of people terrified at the idea of another match between Cody Rhodes and Solo because, well, we've seen it many times before and we know exactly how it ends. Solo is not going to be the new WWE Undisputed Champion heading into WrestleMania 41. Cody will retain the belt if those two do indeed have a match, perhaps at the Elimination Chamber or somewhere else. But as I've sat back thinking about this and thinking about the potential ramifications, I think it's pretty clear that we shouldn't necessarily just be concerned about the match between Cody Rhodes and Solo, because, like I said, it may not be one many people want, but it could also just simply be a means to an end. That's been the case before, but this time it could be a bit more impactful. Why? Because I think when you really look at Solo's return, it's pretty clear why he came back and why they are teasing the idea that it will be Solo and Cody again. Because that's the one thing that could really piss off someone in particular. And we know who that someone is, right? Before we get there, though, let's think about Solo's whole role in this thing. Solo Sikoa was the leader of this new bloodline, right? He was the guy with all the power after Roman Reigns' downfall following WrestleMania 40. Cody Rhodes won the championship. Solo's primary goal, as we've talked about many times, was to bring that WWE Undisputed title back to the Bloodline, to get their locker room back, all the things that they put in motion immediately after WrestleMania 40. We've talked about that numerous times over the past year. Solo's rise to power has been well documented, right? He brings in Jacob Fatu, he brings in the Tongans, he eliminates Paul Heyman. Heyman finally makes his triumphant return before Survivor Series, and all this different stuff, right? But we knew that Solo's downfall was inevitable because he could not accomplish his goal of bringing that championship back. And even though he had the Ulafala, we knew that the original tribal chief was still Roman Reigns. Solo's entire story here has been about his trying to claim, that ultimate power within the family, within the bloodline. And even though he's had his opportunities, he's come up short time and time again, right? We've talked about that. 1 strike, 2 strike, 3 strikes, potentially you're out for Solo Sikoa. But he's had a lot more than 3 strikes, right? We've mentioned the losses to Cody with Roman and all these different combinations of matches where Solo, yes, has had some good wins, but he also has had some significant losses. And losing the Ulafala was the most significant loss of all, because now he's not in charge anymore, right? And Solo has been someone who has respected the lineage and what the Ulafala actually means. So he said before he lost to Roman Reigns that whoever had that would be the tribal chief. Solo, no longer the tribal chief. So what does Solo Sikoa have at this point? Well, all he has is the idea that by getting that WWE Undisputed title back, everything will be fine. He'll go back to being the person in charge. He'll go back to being the person that others follow. Well, the issue, as we know, is that Jacob Fatu and Tama Tonga are no longer following anyone. We saw that dramatic sort of segment they had where Solo just walked off after losing the match to Roman Reigns, and again, he no longer had the Ulafala. Solo walks off into the crowd, never to be seen again, we thought potentially, until he came back last week on SmackDown. But right after that, what happened? Well, it was that significant moment where Jacob Fatu picks up the mic, and all of a sudden, it is Jacob Fatu unleashed, right? And so, what's happened since then? Week after week after week, Jacob Fatu has been getting more comfortable. He's been getting more confident. He's been showing why he is just this rogue animal who at any time can destroy anyone in his path. And now, Solo Sikoa has made the decision to come back and do what? He's essentially upstaged Jacob Fatu. He's decided to take away this sort of new version, I guess you could say, of Jacob Fatu, although he's always been the same. He just talks more now. And yet Solo feels like it's his turn to go back to getting a shot at the championship, to bring it back to the family, which again was Solo's initial goal 1 year ago, basically, after WrestleMania 40. Roman lost it. He was going to bring it back and show that he was the person who could do that. Well, it's clear to everyone now that Jacob Fatu is the person with the best chance to do that, just based on what we've seen from him. WWE has protected Jacob Fatu, made him look like this invincible monster. And now, Solo just wants to go away for a month or whatever it was, and decide to come back and all of a sudden thrust himself back into an opportunity against Cody Rhodes, where again, we know what the outcome would be. Jacob Fatu knows what the outcome would be too, and I think that's where Solo has messed up, because Jacob Fatu has kind of emerged into being what is the clear person that Tama Tonga is following, right? Once Tonga Loa comes back, he's going to also follow Jacob Fatu. And we said it from the start. These guys were hired as mercenaries, right? It's the whole story with Paul Heyman bringing up, listen, I get what you're trying to do, but no one has touched these guys for a reason. No one has ever thought to bring in Jacob Fatu and Tama Tonga and Tangaloa, because why? Everyone knows that we don't want any part of these guys because they're not actual, what we think to be Bloodline members. They're not what we're trying to sort of, build ourselves around here. They're something completely different. Even if they are part of the actual Bloodline itself, not Roman's Bloodline. We don't want any part of those guys, right? And Solo went out, and really that was where he messed up at the beginning, was by bringing these guys in. Because why? He knew that eventually, when he did it, there was always going to be the opportunity for Jacob Fatu and the Tongans to turn on him. And as we've said, it's coming. And I think now you have to ask the question that Solo Sikoa has decided to make his return, and not just return and reconcile with Jacob Fatu or Tama Tonga. No. He returned to attack Cody Rhodes and put all the focus back now on Solo and not on the emerging Jacob Fatu and anything else. It's all back to Solo trying to get the gold. Well, Jacob Fatu probably thinks it's his turn, because that is a match that we know would be fresh, right? To have a Jacob Fatu versus Cody Rhodes match at some point for that WWE Undisputed title. Don't know if Jacob Fatu would win it, but that is one that is new. It is fresh. It's not the same old thing with Cody trying to keep his title from Solo, because we've seen Solo come up short again. And Jacob Fatu, as we said, it's clear the way they're positioning it. He also realizes that. He's kind of gone his own way, right? We've used the whole unleashed term. That's what they've said on commentary, how these guys have basically been unleashed since Solo Sikoa left. Well, Solo's coming back and thinking that all of a sudden they're just going to fall back in line and follow him just because he wants another shot at Cody for a championship that he's proven that he cannot win. I don't think that's going to go well for Solo, and I think that is where he has made a really big mistake, in that coming back and putting himself in a position to basically step in front of Jacob Fatu and now feel like he is the one who's owed another championship match before Jacob Fatu even gets his shot at a first championship match, right? And so we know something interesting is going to happen from this. Jacob Fatu is going to be in that triple threat match on SmackDown on Friday with Braun Strowman and Damian Priest. Now, I think right now, if you ask me who do I think is going to advance, I think it'll be Damian Priest that advances in that match. But isn't it kind of fun to think about the idea, maybe they do something with Jacob Fatu, right? Or maybe somehow Solo's return plays into this on Friday, because we know Solo will be there on SmackDown. Why wouldn't he be? He just attacked Cody at the end of the show last week. And we know that Jacob Fatu and Tama Tonga, that interaction that they have with Solo Sikoa on Friday, is going to tell a lot of the story. It's not just going to be, I guarantee you, Solo walking up and these guys being all friends and good again like they were 6 months ago or more. I don't think that's going to happen. I think the wheels are turning now. And we said they were going to turn eventually. It's just with WWE in this era, it is a slow burn. It is always a slow burn when it comes to these stories. And so we're going to get there with Solo and Jacob Fatu in the moment, as we said, where Solo wants to be acknowledged, right? He wants to continue to be acknowledged. That's not going to happen anymore. He's not the tribal chief. He doesn't have the Ulafala. He doesn't have the WWE Undisputed title. And I think from Solo's perspective, he knows that's the only thing now that could possibly put him in a position of power, is to be the champion. But he's not going to be. And because of that, Jacob Fatu is not going to fall in line. The Tongans are not going to fall in line. And this is where the overthrow of Solo Sikoa is going to happen. And I think we also have to ask, does this mean, with WrestleMania 41 clearly kind of defined now, Jey Uso versus Gunther, the winner of the Elimination Chamber is going to take on Cody, which, as I said, I think the favorite is John Cena. Roman Reigns seems to be tied up in the CM Punk and Seth Rollins universe. Does that mean we're going to get a match that we talked about months ago, could be a potential option for WrestleMania 41, or it is Jacob Fatu versus Solo Sikoa? That is a very intriguing idea based on the history between the two, based on the relationship, and knowing that you don't really have Roman tied in with these two anymore, at least for the time being. He's more worried about Punk and Rollins. So yes, we will probably eventually get that Roman Reigns versus Jacob Fatu match. It doesn't seem like that's going to be at WrestleMania 41, but I can't think of a better option for both Solo and Jacob Fatu in terms of the matchup and what it means for the story that they've been telling for months and months and months now. Sure, I like the idea of a Jacob Fatu versus Braun Breaker, something like that, right? But I don't know that that's what we're getting. They're not on the same brand, all that kind of stuff. This would make the most sense, and I think if you think about the timing of it all, having Solo come back in an opportunity where Cody does not have a match at Elimination Chamber. He's waiting for the winner for WrestleMania 41. Do they do it again? Do they do Cody versus Solo again? But what is Jacob Fatu going to think about that if they do? If Solo walks right back in, gets another championship match, what is Jacob Fatu going to think? And I think that's always a dangerous question to ask when you have this wild animal on the loose. He has been unleashed, and I think he's about to be unleashed on Solo Sikoa, because the slow burn, we finally made it. This is the time, and Solo, again, can maybe blame himself because he knew what he was getting into when he brought these guys in, and he knew there would come a day where he would not have all the power, and now we've reached that. And so he's going to face the consequences. Jacob Fatu is no longer going to acknowledge Solo Sikoa, and I hate to say it, but Jacob Fatu probably not going to be saying, I love you, Solo, much more, because the turn is going to happen. It's just a matter of when and how they do it. And could it be what leads us to a WrestleMania 41 match between the two, or maybe beyond, somewhere like that? We'll find out with this, but you guys let me know what you think. What's going to happen next? Are we getting the rematch between Cody and Solo Sikoa? Are you excited about that? Or are you more excited about how it impacts Jacob Fatu and what will probably be yet another huge milestone for him in WWE, a big potential step forward for Jacob Fatu? You guys let me know what you think. Leave your thoughts, as always, in the comments. Always enjoy your feedback. Hit the subscribe button. Hit the like button. Let me know your thoughts on what's going to happen next with Solo Sikoa, Jacob Fatu, and where you think things go from here with the rogue version of the Bloodline.